Now, all right, we are recording our second pod class guest, Adam Savoie. Adam, you are the Assistant Director of Development at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, or UAB, a fellow Alabamian. I was
Mhm.
at Auburn.
Yeah, yeah,
Your school, when I was in school, man, y'all had really good athletics and obviously a very advanced academic program. So the best of
sure.
both worlds.
Mhm.
But Adam is my guest today for a very specific reason. He, like me, is from this area. Adam from Lafayette, graduated from Lafayette High, if I recall.
Yes, sir. My
Uh,
Lions.
Also, he is a UL graduate. One of our first sports management graduates with our graduate program was on the UL football team, the first New Orleans Bowl. You were on that team,
Correct.
is that
Four
right?
in a row.
That's
11
it.
through 14.
Billy Christian's still a very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
We share memes all the time.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but but what's very unique about Adam, and I'm going to let him tell his story, but I just want to set it up for the class is Adam's from here, went to school here,
Mhm.
but Adam has strategically moved in advancement in college athletics to climb the ladder of success. He's currently the director of or assistant director of development at UAB. And with those moves to California and Indiana and now in Alabama, comes the new wave of networking and the expanding of connections and job titles. And I want to emphasize this before I toss it over to you, Adam. When I was an athletic trainer, my bosses that I really admired the most were the ones who weren't afraid to get their hands dirty. They understood what it took to wash coolers and to tape
Oh,
and do
absolutely.
because
Mhm.
they did all those different levels. So
Mhm.
once they earned that management, they were able to oversee everything because they did it. They came from it. They didn't bypass any steps. And
Sure.
so I've kind of watched you from a distance and the different
Mhm.
levels that you work to work in athletics. There's so many different
Oh, yeah.
arms, right, to make it all work. So,
Mhm.
Adam, thank you for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to you to
Yeah.
kind of tell a brief history of your journey. How you went from graduating UL in sport management to where you currently are at UAB?
Nice. Well, I appreciate the introduction, and I'll start off to further introduce myself. Correct. Name's Adam Sava, born and raised in Lafayette, Louisiana. I was part of a family who were diehard Raging Cajun fans. My dad's currently works for a university as of right now. My parents always took me to trips down to Cajun Field, but also a lot of way travel trips. My family was really good friends with the athletic director at the time called Nelson Scheck-Snyder. Um, I did I think it was fourth grade, I believe. I had to do a career day and interview someone that I would be interested in doing a career in. And I just knew I like college sports, so I decided to do Nelson Scheck-Snyder. He invited, while doing that, project, he invited my dad and I to a road game, football road game when, against Middle Tennessee, and got to see all the glamour of what donors and also what the team
Hmm.
does on the trip. I thought it was the absolutely greatest thing. At the time, I did not know exactly what he did, but I knew I wanted to be that someday. So that's kind of what this planted the seeds for me that I wanted to go the administration route.
Roughly, how old were you when that fire was lit? Rough
So I
estimate.
would say I could say third. I would say fourth grade. I don't know, maybe
Wow, that's awesome.
nine. So yeah, I was blessed, and so I know what I kind of wanted to do when I get older. And I guess fast forward, high school, as you mentioned, Lafayette High. Played football there. I was good enough to get a walk-on spot with Louisiana Raging Cajuns. It was either that or Nicholls State, who
Hmm.
thought I'd get a scholarship, but unfortunately, it was a preferred walk-on, which is not bad. But decided to stay home at Louisiana. And as you know, before that, football wasn't as great as it is today. So being a part of the 11 through 14 uh, reign was awesome. Four New Orleans Bowls in a row. The first one was the first bowl game in 40 plus years. So it was just a
That's
great
right.
experience to be a part of. Didn't play as much when I first started, but started getting a little bit of playing
Uh-huh.
time later on. my senior year, I would have had a lot of opportunities to play, but I had something that was not sports related injury. I ruptured my appendix my senior year,
Mm.
so that kind of cut my career short. Um,
That first New Orleans Bowl, humble brag, kinesiology major snapping to a kinesiology major,
oh,
kicking a
absolutely. Yeah.
kinesiology. I mean, we had kinesiology all
Yes,
over the
sir.
field,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, it that was, and you experienced it. That was one of the best
I
experiences
was
that
there. Yeah.
my undergrad was awesome. But after my career's over, like I mentioned, I still wanted to not necessarily the coach ramp, but wanted to be part of the administration, what Nelson Chicksnyder did. And so I decided to do grad school at UL, the kinesiology department, sports management, health promotion. And we always like this. Our teachers hired always a guest speaker from other departments, and
Hmm.
that's where I connected with our Louisiana's former deputy director, who's now the athletic director at Murray State, Nico
Oh,
Yanko.
wow. Yeah.
Um,
Great guy.
yes, yeah, yeah, and he was part of a development background, but I really liked. We had the same energy
Hmm.
between us. I just really enjoyed what he had to say, and we talked to him after was our guest speaker in our class, and he hooked me up with an internship with Raging Cajun Athletics. And I started off with tickets, and I guess this can kind of start off with a little bit of the first step on
Yeah,
climbing the
absolutely.
ladder.
Absolutely. There
Um,
has to be a first rung.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it always starts with an internship. And I was with tickets. My advice is don't be afraid to not just intern under one department in the athletic department, but
Hmm.
shadow or intern other departments around. It could be marketing, um, ticket operations, communications, facility management, development, academic service. Either one, it's a great way. Well, one, it gives you great experience and knowledge, and also respect what each department does within the
Mm.
athletic department to make it function. And two, it's also a great way to see what you like and what you
Wow.
don't like. Not necessarily like, but still
No,
gain knowledge of
what a
what your
great point.
passion is.
It
Yeah.
your hypothesis is I want to maybe do this, but that
Yeah,
internship might confirm or reject. Like it might not
absolutely.
necessarily be, and either answer is a
Mhm.
good thing, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
But and again, it just gives you a lot more respect what each department goes through to keep the whole athletic department running. Um, and also great experience to network. It
Mm.
is within your department. It's good to build a relationship with other people around the department. And obviously, you'll never know where that person will end up.
Hmm.
Some people will stay Louisiana,
Yeah.
for some time, or they'll carry on to go to Purdue, which
Yeah.
we talked earlier that kind of helped me actually get my foot in the door at Purdue
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
begin with. So,
Because correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm just an old physics guy who likes sports, but there's a lot of turnover within athletics, right? I mean, not just people just
absolutely.
think coaching, but
Hmm.
when coaches leave, they want to take people that they liked working with or
Oh,
who did a good
absolutely. Yeah,
job,
yeah,
and then there's a void there, and then new people. So there's a constant kind
exactly.
of kind of turnover,
Yeah.
and when fate comes calling, you need to be ready to answer it.
Absolutely. You need to take that opportunity. So always build a relationship with not just the unit that you're interning, but also, and that goes if you do have a job with your department, don't be afraid to venture out with other departments and build relationships and also build your network. So I would say that's the first step. The intern, I call it the
Hmm.
intern shadow phase. So in college athletics. Um, I guess I could start with step
Yeah,
two.
yeah.
Don't, I would say, take the opportunity to go to any sports management conference that is. Could be within the state, within your budget, or even out of state. A popular one, I'm going blank with the name, but it was hosted by Teamworks.
Okay.
That's a great site for anyone that's interested in not just college athletics, but also professional to
So
get
that'll
down.
be the students' homework. So it's sponsored by Teamworks. I want them to
Yeah,
find what that
yeah,
conference
yeah.
is
That
and
that
when
could
the
be
next one
another.
is. Yeah.
This is actually a conference that I went when I was still in grad school.
Uh-huh.
It was a great opportunity. People from not just college athletic departments, but also professional. It was at a Pelicans game. It was
Oh,
right before
nice.
the Pelicans game. And multiple people from different departments um, share
So
what they
we
did.
haven't, so you were still in grad school doing your internship, and attending, doing these networking events and trying to go to these seminars and conferences to expand. So you
Mhm.
already knew before your first like job that
Yep.
I'm trying to extend my contacts and my connections,
Oh, absolutely. And also build that network.
building a
Even if you
network.
don't get a job, you still meet some interesting people in a good way,
Yeah.
you'll build some relationship and build your network at these
Yeah.
events.
Yeah.
It was good. And one that I had the opportunity to do, this was still interning under the Cajun Dome, was a big one called it's called CTC, hosted by Ticketmaster.
Uh-huh.
It's called the College Gate Ticketing Conference. Um,
Nice.
this one, when I went to, it goes, I think this year it's in Kansas City, but at the time when I went, it was in Columbus, Ohio. It was a pretty cool little conference. It was in Ohio State Stadium, so you got to
Nice.
tour.
Like
Um,
in the horseshoe?
yeah, yeah, it was awesome.
Cool.
It was awesome. Also super huge campus. I think about 60,000 kids go there. It was very big. But while doing that conference, I was actually applying. I think it was my third interview process, and it was with San Diego
San
State.
Diego State.
And then when I was at that conference, I ended up actually meeting the person whose role that I was filling, who went to Oregon,
Mm.
and I made sure to build a great relationship with them.
Yeah.
Hung out with them the whole.
Was there ever any hesitation to leave to advance your career, or were you went in
Mm,
with a mindset, I'm willing, I'll go
mm,
if the right opportunity is there, right? I mean, I'm sure
mm,
there's some criteria you had to meet, but was there any anxiety or hesitation when you were in this process for that first job out of
mm.
grad school?
There's always going to be some nerves with that, but I forgot. I met someone, actually not college athletics related. I think it was at was in Lafayette. It was from a guy
Hmm.
from that was outside, not from Lafayette. His name was also Adam.
Hmm.
And he said like the best thing he did was move out of his hometown. I think he's from
Yeah.
somewhere in Iowa. He said I wouldn't be able to experience all this different culture. I wouldn't have had
Yeah.
nothing idea Louisiana, and that kind of planted the seed
Wow.
for me because I never thought I would leave Lafayette. To be honest with you, Ryan,
Fair.
but I would say that honestly planted the seed that I do want to end up back in Lafayette, but I want to learn more what's out there.
Absolutely.
Get out there in my comfort zone. There's always going to be nerves, but I was super excited. I was still single at the time, so I had nothing
Uh-huh.
holding me back.
Yeah.
So um, I knew at a young age it was the best opportunity I should do for myself to gain that
and
experience. So,
and before, because obviously I want to hear the San Diego
yep.
story, but for our students, I think this is a very important lesson. Your quality is kind of hidden in quantity. When you
Mhm.
have options, that
Mhm.
really puts you in a position of power. And when you
Absolutely.
limit those options, it
Mhm.
narrows down your position of
Mhm.
power. And because when you have a lot of options, well, now you could take in cost of living, you could take in, is it a good
Mhm.
program, you could
Mhm.
take in the salary, you could take in the benefit. You have all these different things that you can weigh pros and cons
For
versus
sure.
funneling down your options, and
Oh,
you
absolutely.
you might only be picking between, what do I want, a
Yeah.
hamburger or a cheeseburger,
Exactly. It's funny how you mentioned that. Make sure you do your research on where you're applying for. I'll speak
Yeah,
on that. We
let's
get
go
to,
into it.
but yeah, I guess with the interview process, I'll skip the resume building because it sounds like that's what y'all did mostly last. Is that correct? Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
Um,
Although, if there's any, in terms of like just the specific advice, like if there's something
yeah.
that just, guys, in terms of resume, just
Mhm.
one thing might stand. So if there's something very profound that advice you want to give the
Mhm.
students on that, please feel free.
Yeah, I will say my biggest advice, I won't go deep in it, have multiple people proofread it. Everyone has different
Good piece of
ideas or
advice.
that they can implement. I'll say I don't know if she's still there, Dr. Lineman. Is
Yeah.
she?
Yeah.
I remember her class. She gave us a good format to use, and
Hmm.
I've kept that format throughout
If
my
if it
career
ain't
and just
if it
added
ain't
on to it.
broken.
Yeah, don't fix. Yeah, so I would say that's my biggest advice. Multiple people proofread it. Don't overdo it. Don't have too much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, have multiple people. I would say that's my biggest
Outstanding.
recommendation. And you'll learn every place I went to. I've actually had recommendation from each department, and
Mm-hmm.
there's always something new that added on to it. So uh, yeah, and multiple people proofread it.
Outstanding.
I did it with that one. Um,
And I think to enlighten what Adam is saying is that it might, if you put too much, it might almost seem like you're overcompensating for
yeah,
something, right? Almost kind of
yes,
like what's the old cliche, we're baffling them with BS.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
sometimes when you got too much, so
Mm,
if experience, you don't have to put it all. There's
mm,
ways to let them know, and that's why you have references, right? Because they can
absolutely,
always call for those
absolutely.
follow-ups or more information
Yeah,
provided upon request. But if you
yeah.
send them a book,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And another with the references, they're always going to, they accept the job. They're always going to contact three of your references. Um, Trust the three of the five that you trust the most, and make sure
amen.
where you go, make sure to add someone from San Diego State, someone from Purdue, and someone from UAB. So you have
Great
multiple
point.
different references from
Great point.
um, different backgrounds, I should
Very
say.
good point. I'm writing down notes as we talk.
Absolutely. Take
So so you get the job offer at San Diego State. Did you have other options you were weighing, or when they offered, you were
Mhm.
like, I'm in? How did that kind
Yeah.
of come about?
So when I first started before the San Diego State gig, I actually applied for I believe it was four schools at the
Hmm.
time. Um, I wanted to get out the South. I wanted to get out my
Mm.
comfort zone. I wanted
Yeah.
to, try to gain as much experience of what each school asks. And I would also say this: don't be afraid to apply. I wouldn't say a lot, but like multiple schools that interview that you'd be interested in living at.
Yeah.
Um, one, you'll notice the more interviews you do, the more confidence you build, and also the more knowledge you gain from it. And two, even though each department could be different, they'll ask very eerily similar questions.
Mm.
So if you didn't answer their question good the first time, make sure make a middle note. What could you done better? And you can prepare for the next interview
Hmm.
and have a better answer for it.
Yeah.
So you'll notice that.
And a lot of times it's not necessary. A better answer could be maybe a more concise answer, a
That's
more
what, yeah,
direct
exactly,
answer.
exactly.
It's not like the answer might change, but maybe you could have done
Mhm.
a better job of delivering it. Because remember, you're a
Absolutely.
salesman. You're trying to sell your services,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
to the
And,
buyer.
and another add on to it, a lot of people are looking for positive, especially in entry level.
Uh-huh.
It's good to have knowledge of the position itself, but really people are looking for positive energy and
What a great
willing to
point.
learn, and they'll deal with the rest, especially in the entry level. They'll
Cor-
take the time to properly teach you the position, get you
Correct me
the
if I'm
detail.
wrong. A good positive, because this is me being a novice.
Yep,
Positive energy could be someone willing to say yes. And I don't mean being taken
absolutely.
advantage of, but hey,
Mm,
would you be willing to dabble into tickets?
mm,
Absolutely. Teach
mm,
me that.
mm.
Would you be willing to collaborate with something on the man? Absolutely. Like
Oh,
the
absolutely. Yeah.
willingness to
Hmm. Hmm.
learn and the willingness to do
Yeah.
things not
Yeah.
only will bring positive energy, but it's going to also add to your skill set.
Yeah, exactly. I'll share a little quick story besides
Please,
that. This
please.
is actually during COVID. So I'll fast forward. San Diego State was my first full-time position, and I worked in ticket operations there. And during that time, COVID happened. So to still have a job, I would volunteered to work with other departments and worked with facility management a lot. And I learned so much in the
Wow.
background. That's more the internal side of things,
Yeah.
um, about how they get ready to get game day set up for each sport. Mostly worked with soccer, men and women's soccer and track and field, and just seeing how they operated, and also gain a lot of respect from other departments from volunteering and helping them
Absolutely.
out. And obviously, um, expand my network with that way too. So,
I think sometimes volunteering sometimes I think it gets a bad rep. You were
mm,
investing in your time. So in
absolutely.
other words, it wasn't necessarily monetarily now,
Mm,
but that experience and making those contacts and
for sure.
them being able to say, "Man, Adam's someone who will
Mm,
step up when time," like
mm,
that's an investment that
mm,
will pay off down the road.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
for the students listening, like
Mm,
anytime you can do it, think of it as free tuition for an
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
experience that only requires
Mhm.
your curiosity and willingness to learn.
Absolutely. You know, think of it as like extra work. Think of it, you're gaining more knowledge and experience of what other
Yes,
people do.
free
You know,
tuition.
and I'm sure some people in this class, like I
Yeah,
want to eventually be an athletic director. You know, I'm going the fundraiser route mostly, but it's good to learn experience from. You're gonna have to learn every department of what their
exactly.
roles are. So to have that knowledge and experience will
Because
help you.
let's be honest, an
Yeah,
athletic director needs to fundraise. They need to
absolutely.
shake hands, kiss babies. They
I will say it's the classical route to become
Yeah,
Canadian.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
So
yeah.
how long were you at San Diego State?
So I was about almost 3 years. I think a little
Mhm,
less than 3 years, but I was about 3 years in. So I mostly worked in the ticket operations
mhm.
side of things, which I liked at the time. But I'm a super extroverted person, and I like getting out the office. I've learned very well. And going back to mentioning, like, don't be afraid to not just stick with the department, like ticket operations, for example. Don't be afraid to talk with other departments such as marketing. And I really like hanging out with the Aztec Club, which is equivalent to RCAF at Rage
Uh-huh,
Engagement Athletics. Man, I ended up building a good relationship for the leader of that unit. Um, he saw potential in fundraising. They didn't have a spot open at the time when I was there, but he was the first one to mention about Purdue because he knew someone at
uh-huh.
um,
It's someone that
Purdue.
that that
Yeah, yeah,
that you knew and they knew you, and
absolutely.
so
Yeah,
therefore their recommendation has weight because
exactly,
that person
exactly,
trusts them
exactly.
that they would
Yeah,
recommend
yeah,
somebody. Yeah.
and also to add to it, I don't know if you ever met him. He was friends with Nico Yanko, Patrick Crawford. He was the former head
Absolutely.
sports
Yeah.
information director. He
I
was at
remember
Purdue at
Pat.
the
Yeah.
time, so
Absolutely.
he also helped. So having two different names,
And
and that goes back to building your network, going to other departments. It really is about not what you know, but who you know in this business. And you
absolutely.
can do that with any business, but especially the college athletic field. It is a big field, but it's also small.
Absolutely.
Everyone
Everybody
kind of
knows.
knows a little bit
And
everyone.
it's not
So
necessarily everybody knows everybody. Everybody can know about everybody because all it takes is one
yes,
phone call
oh,
to
absolutely.
someone at that
Yeah,
department
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and they
exactly.
and they
So
know everything about you. For for
exactly.
for the students that don't know, because I just want to make sure they have an understanding. They
Mm,
may not understand all the details and intricacies of working with tickets. It's not
mm,
like you're just selling tickets. The amount of thought process, season tickets,
absolutely.
packages,
Mhm.
all of those things take a lot of thought and
Oh,
planning,
absolutely.
and how are we gonna tier it out, and how are we
Mhm.
gonna announce it, and how are we gonna
Exactly.
sell. So
Oh, yeah.
it's more than just, maybe I think sometimes people think like it's not working at Ticketmaster behind a booth. Like
No, no,
these
it's
these
different.
these ticketing for colleges is a
Mhm.
big planned management
Oh,
deal.
absolutely. The operation side is an interesting side of building out a plan, making sure building out online website for people to renew easily online. It's a lot of back end stuff that people don't realize. It takes a while to set up, I should say.
Yeah,
But fast forward, I knew that was. I enjoyed my time in tickets, but I knew fundraising was definitely a route that I would enjoy it a lot. I was more of an I like getting out the
yeah,
office,
yeah.
picking operations you're more stuck in and making sure um, the money's correct of each event that you have and um, obviously setting up online stuff. But no, I was very blessed to have the opportunity at Purdue. Also, I think I skipped a part about when you're in the interview process.
Oh,
I
okay.
wanted to say,
Yeah, because we talked about resumes, but we
yeah,
didn't really give advice for interviews. What's your
yeah,
biggest
yeah.
advice for that?
My biggest advice is do a little research, not necessarily the position itself, but just the knowledge of the university, what type of community, um, and what's significant or something news that the university has known for the past 5 to 10 years.
Mm,
I'll use UAB for example. The biggest news that happened in recent history was um, the cutting of football and bringing it back.
thanks, University of Alabama.
Yeah,
I'm
at
I'm an Auburn
Tuscaloosa.
I'm an Auburn guy, so
Yeah, yeah.
I could say that. Yeah, yeah, Tuscaloosa.
UAT. That's what a lot of people say over there. But learning a little bit more about because I was a football player at the time when that happened. That was
Hmm.
2013. I had no affiliation with UAB, but hearing that story kind of sunk down to me. Like I couldn't imagine being a student athlete and
Yeah,
you just played a game, then the next day you find out that they're cutting football. But learning the history of the Birmingham itself, how
yeah,
that they fought to try to keep that back, and
absolutely.
it was
They didn't want the
successful.
competition. Yeah,
Exactly, and they've been besides the past 2 years, they've been very successful. Um, but no little tidbits like
yeah.
one place
Like
I
if you go interview at San Diego State, know that
Mhm.
they're the Aztecs.
Absolutely.
Maybe know about Marshall Falk.
Exactly, Louisiana. So I'm a Louisiana guy, so I made sure to mention it that. Um, so just new little tidbits about that.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of another fun fact. Place I other interviewed was like Dayton, and I learned why they were called the Flyers.
the
So not many
Dayton
people know that.
Flyers.
Look, their inspirations behind the Wright brothers.
Oh, cool.
People think they were from North Carolina. I know they're from
Yeah,
Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio.
And they got so happy that I knew that information. So just little tidbits. Um,
While we're on interviews, has
mm,
most collegiate interviews been similar, or have some just wildly like some might have been just a conversation to get to know you more as a
mm,
person. Some might have been more of an interview of what you know
mm,
from an educational standpoint. Maybe some are hybrid mixes. Has
mm.
all the different interviews you've done over the years been more similar or more different from your memory?
There's a lot of similarities, but also some difference. I would say this position, the leader of the unit
Mm,
reached out first, get a feel for the person, and then, so you have the good feel, and they'll have the opportunity to invite you over. First, usually it's a phone call or a Zoom meeting with different people from the committee, and that's another tidbit I would like to give people on here. Usually, they'll give you an itinerary of who's going to interview you, and
ooh,
usually
okay.
there's 3 to 4 people.
Hmm.
Uh, if you want to go over and beyond, I would research each person that's part of the community because you might find some fun fact or tidbit about that
Absolutely.
person. Either they could have been a former student athlete that was at Purdue. There was a person that was really good at swimming at Purdue, and I mentioned that in my interview, and they were really pleased that I knew
Absolutely.
about that. And then there was another one, I believe it was South Alabama. The person who interviewed me used to be a prison guard. So
Nice.
entertained about the like,
Nice.
hey, you're a prison guard. What got you?
Nice.
So
That
he was
because
happy
you're
to share.
interviewing them as well as
Yes,
they're interviewing you, and it shows that
exactly.
you have genuine interest. You're not wasting their time.
Yes, yes, exactly. So that's a good way to put it. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
you're
highly
not wasting their
interested.
time.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So people like talking about themselves. I will say that and especially being a fundraiser,
Yeah,
you talk as much as you want by yourself, but people like expressing themselves a lot. So let's
absolutely. Absolutely. You have to put
so
them, it's just
yeah,
like a good coach. You have to put them in the position to make the play. So
exactly.
as a
Yeah.
development person, you need
Mm,
to know what Kenny Rogers say. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them,
absolutely.
know when to walk away, and know
Yeah.
when to let them talk.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So that's a good tidbit to go over beyond
Very
research
good point.
who's interviewing you.
Very good point.
Um, and this necessarily doesn't have to be through interview, but make sure, and you mentioned this earlier, interview what city this university is located, see what the cost of living, crime, the community, the
Mm,
weather. It's a good way to see, like, tell yourself, like, do you see yourself living in that place
wow.
two
Great
to
point.
5 years? I'm glad I experienced Indiana. I learned real fast. I'm not a snow person.
They
Which
call themselves the Midwest, but let's be honest.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
north. They're in the north.
exactly. Which is funny. I saw Lafayette, Louisiana looked a lot like Lafayette, Indiana
That's a
a
very good
couple
point.
weeks ago. But um yeah, that's a good way to see. Do you see yourself living in that place for the next could be 2 to 10 years?
Yeah.
So that's a good advice. San Diego's a great place to live, but cost of living has gone way up. I knew I
Mm,
couldn't sustain living like that
yeah.
for some time. But yeah, I
How
would
how did you
appreciate it.
get how did you get, maybe this is just my curiosity taking over, but what was the leap from San Diego State to Purdue specifically? Like what got your attention that this is
Mhm.
a place that I could take my next rung on the ladder?
Yeah, yeah. As Mitch, I always wanted to be in fundraising, and at Purdue, their fundraising unit's called John Purdue Club. They are known around the college athletic field that they're one of the best fundraising units in the
Wow.
country. And that's what sparked my interest right away because I knew I wasn't looking at the time. I did look if I could see myself living there.
Hmm.
But I knew it's like I could see myself living there a short while. But while I'm there, I want to make sure to learn from the best of the best.
It was worth it to get that
Yes.
experience at
Oh,
the
absolutely.
in my mind, I'm thinking of like the major leagues where you have the minor leagues and then the majors. And it
Yeah,
seems like
yeah.
Purdue fundraising was a major league
That's a great way to
outfit.
put it. Or say it's like JUCO football. You're there to get some experience and then get
Yeah, and then get out.
out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was a great experience. Made some great connections there. And it was also a great way to interact because a lot of people in our department weren't just from Indiana. They're
Hmm.
from New York, Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, Florida, a lot of Midwest, but also
Yeah.
from different areas around the country, the
And I'm
Carolinas.
sure Drew Brees came up in the interview. I mean, I don't mean to assume.
It That was another reason why I wanted to go to Purdue. Is Drew Brees. I'll say that. Had an opportunity to briefly say hi to him, which I was
Awesome.
super stoked about.
Outstanding.
Such a great person.
Yeah.
He's a true Boilermaker too. But um,
And for the students that may not know, Purdue basketball is really like basketball in Midwest, like Michigan State, Michigan,
yeah,
like
yeah.
basketball. I think down here in SEC country football kind of dominates, but
Mm,
ACC and Big
Big Ten.
Ten country, dude, basketball is
Yeah,
they take
it
pride.
is.
They take pride in their
I would
style of basketball.
Yeah, I would compare how Texas treats football, like even like the high school level. That's how
Yeah,
The state of Indiana treats basketball. I
that's a
think
very good way to put it.
the top 25 biggest high school basketball gyms, I believe 15 or 20 of them are in the state of Indiana. So
I mean,
that
dude,
shows you how
I
much.
mean, Hoosiers, man. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. If anyone hasn't seen that movie Hoosiers, please watch it. That's a great example how Boilermakers are.
yeah.
And it's fun because the stadium itself is not super extravagant. It's all just bleachers, no seat backs whatsoever. But they
But you
shove
get the
everybody.
home court advantage. So like Cameron Indoor at
Absolutely.
Duke, if they wanted
Oh
to, they
yeah.
could make it the size of the Superdome,
Oh,
but they would
absolutely.
lose the
Yeah.
home field
They
advantage of
like that
having
historic
everybody right on
Midwest.
top of you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So a lot of tradition there. And I don't want to miss out with San Diego State. They built a pretty good basketball program. I would
That-
say their recent success is when Kawhi Leonard started
oh
there.
yeah,
Like
yeah. Well, before him,
historically,
wasn't Tony Gwynn played
he
baseball and
did play
basketball?
there. He
Yeah,
played
he
baseball,
was like,
basketball, but I wouldn't say they weren't as
yeah,
passionate
that's a good point. You're
basketball
right. You're right. It's
at the
more of a
time.
footnote in time. That's a good point. Yeah.
Exactly. I would say the Steve Fisher era. He used to be the coach of the Fab Five. If anyone doesn't know that,
Yeah,
the Michigan
absolutely.
basketball team. But he was the head coach at the time over there. Was fired from there and got back on his feet at San Diego State actually, and he
Nice.
just found a recruit called Kawhi Leonard and became a basketball school.
So when you were at Purdue, there you were still did tickets, or is mostly fundraising?
Yeah.
And then within fundraising, was it all sports, or did you just emphasize basketball?
Yeah, so great question. So at Purdue, my title is Revenue Generation Development
I
Associate.
want to
So
write that down.
yeah,
Revenue.
Generation and Development Associate.
Wow. That even sounds big leaguish.
It is a great way. So I was a hybrid person. I
Uh-huh.
did ticket sales and entry development fundraising.
Because ticket sales, correct me if I'm wrong, there's an element of sponsorship that could come to it, right? Like
Could
you think
be.
about a fundraiser doing
Mhm.
sponsorships, and
Mhm.
at this level, you might get a table for the fundraiser, and
Yeah,
you might
yeah,
get a bottle of champagne, you might get
yeah,
this, and
yeah.
sometimes tickets or and season tickets, whatever, can have an element of development and fundraising
Oh, for
to
sure.
it. This isn't my specialty, but is it
Yeah, so I'll
kind of
say tickets is the great introduction to have further discussions on
ah,
fundraising. I'll say that's I would say tickets is the classical way to have that discussion fundraising.
gotcha.
Luckily we have great databases of people who's been having season ticket holders, and you'll notice some people have had
Wow,
season tickets for 30 years but never been a donor.
gotcha.
And that's a great way to entry. Like I see you've been a supporter for 30 years. Have you ever thought about joining
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
called John Purdue
And
Club?
and you never know. They may be like, well, no one's ever asked.
Yeah,
Yeah. Tell me
exactly.
more.
And tell me more, gain knowledge, what benefits and what the importance of donating to John Purdue Club is. And a lot of fundraising helps the scholarship fund, and that
Uh-huh.
helps support not just football. Let's say that
Yeah, everybody.
it's
Rising
sports
tide raises
everybody.
all ships.
Exactly. And you might find further discussion that they might be, has the capacity to do something even bigger and could lead to major giving initiatives.
Isn't that the difference between fundraising and development, where development is more relationship building,
Mm,
where eventually there might be an ask to a specific tie that will be of significance, but it's not like you're going selling Girl Scout cookies from door to door,
yeah,
asking for
yeah, yeah.
$4, $5. It's developing a relationship, showing them a genuine need, right?
Hmm.
We need this improvement, we need that
For
improvement,
sure.
and then working it out with their people to make those, I don't want to say cliche, but dreams come true for these major development
Absolutely.
initiatives.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, it could be another discussion sometime to show you like the donor cycle being a fundraiser of how
yeah,
to
yeah,
identify and cultivate
yeah.
uh,
Do
and
you
make
mind
the
if
ask.
and maybe this is peeling behind the curtain, but is those VIP suites that might belong to the president or it
Mhm.
might belong to the athletic director, are those suites used to for development? Like in other words, you might invite the head of Texaco or some big
Yeah.
business or
Yeah.
a Shilling, right? Hey, would
Mhm.
you like to be my guest at
Mhm.
my suite to watch a game? And in those kind of social settings, there could be the chance for more development.
Mhm.
Is that commonly kind of used in that way, or is that not necessarily?
Or that way, and you got to do your homework with this particular person that you're trying to bring up.
Ah, great point.
Um,
Great point.
I would say if that's to introduce them to the actual president or athletic director,
That's a
I
big
would
step.
be that's a seven-figure ask. I would say if you plan on doing that, and that starts with a lot of homework, looking
Sure.
at Zillow. This is more deeper of what I do, like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
and you
But
always
this
ask
is
leading
also
up
introducing to
questions.
the students of
Exactly.
all like
Yeah, yeah,
things that they didn't even
yeah.
think about, right?
And there's a donor cycle, and that could be another discussion sometime.
Uh-huh.
It's always identification, identify the prospect, what their network is, what house they live in, how much their house costs,
Yeah.
what their job title is. There's a lot more homework to
Yeah.
identify, and also there's always questions they got to ask, like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I see you have a nice RV.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
How often do you use it? Or,
Yeah.
oh, you have a yacht. Oh, you have a private island. No, it just like could lead to a lot of
I
other
I,
questions.
th- I
And
think what got my mind on that is and again, I don't know Purdue specifically, but
mm,
in pro sports and college sports, it seems to be the initiative to have more boxes, more
Mm,
experiences, because our televisions give us
mm, mm.
replay high def.
Yep,
I got
yep,
my own beer, I got my own food, I got my own bathroom.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so we're trying to bring back better experiences. And so
Yep.
these initiatives to have more suites or
Oh, for sure.
boxes or these kind of things. And
Hmm.
so I was wondering if that also was kind of the newer modern wave
Hmm.
of development of being a
Hmm.
sponsor, and
Hmm.
you get this suite that you could fill with, 20 or
Yeah,
30 people, or
yeah,
just,
yeah, yeah.
kind of like what's next in those kind of
So yeah, I'll say hit the nail in the coffin. It is more about the quality of the experience in the stadium than the quantity. Now, especially with group of five schools of how they can compete with
mhm.
Power Four, even Power Four, for example. It was at Purdue. We worked really hard on expanding the Ross-Ade football stadium, the end zone, and add premium seating. Actually, I was at San Diego State. I worked more of the ticket operations, not more of the
Uh-huh.
development, but they built a whole brand new stadium called the Mission Valley Project. It was not just the stadium itself, um, but just another version. So the stadium where San Diego State used to play, it was Qualcomm.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, where the Chargers used to play at, and that's
Mhm.
where I mostly worked at. Um, Obviously, Chargers moved out, and the stadium was way too big. What San Diego State
Yeah.
needed, so they decided to build a stadium right next to the old site and use some pieces from the old stadium. But yeah, it's one of the top of the art stadiums in
Yeah.
the country. They want to make sure the experience, about 30,000,
Uh-huh.
not huge, but the experience, the suites.
Yeah.
Um,
It still has that new stadium smell,
yes,
that new car
exactly,
smell,
exactly. Absolutely, absolutely.
uh
And I could say that with UAB. I wasn't here at the time when they brought back football, but they
Uh-huh.
helped fundraising a new stadium in downtown Birmingham. Before that, they played in Legion Field, which is an old historic field.
No, I
Actually,
remember Legion.
and
Yeah, I remember
Auburn,
Legion Field.
Alabama
Yeah,
used to
that's where
play
they used to
there.
play the Iron Bowl.
Neutral
Yeah.
site. I think that
Yeah.
ended in the '90s, and then UAB ended up having it their home stadium. As you know, that was way too big for UAB. It's about 70,000.
Yeah. And as an
Yeah,
Auburn fan, it was never a neutral site. I mean, it was
yeah,
practically
it's right down the road from
20
Tuscaloosa.
miles from
Yeah,
Tuscaloosa. Yeah.
yeah. But to answer your question, UAB focused more on the experience, the quality of stadium more than the quantity.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I would say we hold about 40,000 at it's called Protective Stadium. So and it's a great experience. A lot of amenities compared to Auburn and
Do
Alabama.
do
So
you remember, students that are listening to this probably won't, but remember the ice skaters? The So when the ice skaters first came out, I didn't know anything about hockey, but it
yeah.
was an experience. It
Oh,
was
absolutely.
they did so
Yeah.
many cool promotional things, and there
Mm-hmm.
was, I mean, I, as an ADD person, I was just looking at butterflies flying all over.
Yeah.
It was
Same here.
entertaining, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see that now with like the Savannah Bananas,
Hmm.
and how they just make baseball fun and
Exactly.
entertaining.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm wondering if the Savannah Banana style is gonna, and I'm asking, I don't know, but do you think
Mhm.
that, I'm not saying banana ball is going to take over
Yeah,
college
yeah,
sports,
I
but just,
know.
but those types of atmosphere,
Mhm.
fan friendly, doing things in between innings, or do you think kind of college athletics will always be seen more in reverence to the
Mhm.
sport, or are people going to say, guys, we got to have butts in the seats,
Yeah, yeah.
and maybe Texas doesn't need to do that, but
Mhm.
maybe some, Northwestern State or Nichols,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
maybe some schools in Nacogdoches, Texas, might want to
For sure.
implement some of these kind of things that we're seeing are very successful. I
Mhm.
heard when the Bananas went to Baton Rouge for 3 days, finding
Yeah, sold
tickets
out.
were like
Yeah,
ridiculously tough.
yeah.
So, do you think that there's a future in that, or do you think that that's kind of like a circus? You go to the circus to see the
Mhm.
circus, and
Yeah.
college athletics will kind of stay traditional to that experience. What are your thoughts on that?
I would say, with the exception of the top blue bloods, I would say a lot of, especially group of five, will find ways and most likely copies what
Yeah,
Savannah is are
because it's
doing. I mean,
survival.
exactly. Not just Savannah. either other minor league ballparks. Like here at UAB, we hired a lot of people that were at the Birmingham Barons who,
The Birmingham,
yeah,
Michael Jordan's old
exactly the same. And they host
minor
a
league,
lot
yeah,
of like they do fireworks every Friday, like some type of races
or theme
every
Star Wars
Wednesday.
night, or
Yeah,
you know,
something like
70s night.
that. Yeah. And we used to do that here at UAB. San Diego State did that a lot. It's been a minute since I've been at Louisiana, but I'm sure it seems like they're doing something light show. Something I heard
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
football scene. No, it like we mentioned earlier, it's about the quality and experience more than the quality and
And I think it's one of those, like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? If you create quality experience and people come consistently, well, then maybe you have the revenue to reinvest
absolutely. Yeah,
in
yeah.
facilities, coaching
Mm,
staff,
mm,
NIL.
mhm.
What came first, the chicken or the egg? And so I could see, well, if it's not happening one way, why not try
Mhm.
something else and see if
Yeah,
that can't, get the snowball effect
exactly.
happening? What man, time flies so fast.
Yeah.
What got you looking at UAB
Mhm.
from Purdue?
Yeah. So I guess personal reasons. At the time I was at Purdue,
Uh-huh.
my mother passed away at that time, and my father's at the older side of things. So I wanted to go somewhere that was at least driving distance and not flying distance. Um, but then again, I wanted to make sure it was a right fit for me. And if there's any initiatives that they're planning on working on,
Mm.
um, I would say in fundraising, I made sure to ask UB, is there any future capital projects that they're working on? Right now, our main focus is actually our basketball renovation project.
Mhm.
So I'm currently helping fundraise for that, and it's been an exciting journey so far with that. And I knew it was an opportunity to grow, especially in the group of five level. And they were also, at the time when I was interviewing, they were hopping from another conference. So when I first started, it was their tail end in the Conference USA, and they jumped up to the American. And so I just wanted to see that experience
Yeah, absolutely.
too. But yeah, distance was a big part of why I wanted to go to UAB, but also an opportunity to grow. And
Yeah.
people I worked with here, are awesome. Not toxic environment whatsoever. Everyone's great. I couldn't be happier. So
Southern
yeah,
hospitality, right?
exactly. And people, out of all the places I went to, they were definitely, besides Lafayette, is definitely the friendliest.
Some good people.
Yeah,
Some very
yeah.
good people.
I enjoy Birmingham. It's been, and that goes back to do your research on the community. Do you see yourself living here for some time? So at a
One
trip like
thing
at
that stood
Birmingham.
out to that story is being a part of something new, right? Like being
Mm-hmm.
part of a new initiative,
Hmm.
like
Yeah,
from an experience standpoint, that has to stand out as in terms of, well,
absolutely.
I'm part of an already established initiative
Mm-hmm.
versus being a part of something ground
Yeah,
level
yeah,
new that
yeah.
you help build. Like, what a
Exactly.
valuable piece on your resume, right? Like
Exactly. Yeah, hit the nail right on the coffin.
uh
Yes.
um in terms of and now is the part where and obviously any points that you want to
Mhm.
interject, but I'm so curious for your insight. Playing poker with your career, if someone said, Adam, we would love for you to be our new athletic director at Southeastern Oklahoma Community Tech.
Yeah.
Well, on one hand, it's like, well, that's my dream, and
Mhm.
I need to start. But on the other, it's like, well, let me wait until there's an opportunity that I feel like I
Yeah.
think about Coach Napier, how he could have probably
Mhm.
advanced sooner, but he waited
Mhm.
until a job that he
Yeah.
was willing to, Florida, um, came along. And this isn't to say right decision, wrong decision, but when what kind of advice can you give a student that, like, my uncle, we went looking for arrowheads, and I was like, I was a
Mhm.
kid, and I was like, how will I know? And he looked at me, he's like, you're gonna know when you find one, right?
Yeah.
Like you're just gonna know. So I know sometimes, especially for our students, our young professionals, taking that leap, which
Mhm.
job should I take? And especially if it's your
Mhm.
dream job, but there's levels to this stuff. Just because it's an athletic
Mhm.
director job doesn't mean it's the right one for your first.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can you
Exactly.
share some
Mhm.
advice on in terms of that just
Mhm.
because it is something you're looking for doesn't necessarily mean it's the right move while
Yeah,
you're climbing that ladder
yeah.
that towards your
So,
goals.
so I want to go back up, and this is
Yeah,
going back
please,
to the when you're during the interview
please.
process.
Yeah.
And usually a committee, once they're finished asking their questions, they'll always ask, do you have any questions for us? Um, I will say, don't ask less than three or above. Um, if you
Don't.
just ask one question,
Yes.
it doesn't show that you really are,
You're wasting their time.
yes, or you haven't done your homework.
Wow.
Um,
Very good piece of advice.
exactly. Now, going back to your question, how you can determine what's the right fit. So I have a couple questions that I usually ask
Hmm.
um, after I'm done. And what this is, but I can email you the questions too,
Yeah, yeah,
if you
absolutely.
like. But these are ones that kind of a feel of the department itself. One of them is, what professional development opportunities do you guys offer?
Mm,
Um, and that's such as classes or conferences. As you mentioned, conferences are a great way to build your network, but it's also a great idea to learn ideas from other
absolutely.
departments. So that's a great question to ask. If they don't offer that, I think that'd be a red flag to me because it's not helping you grow.
Yeah, it's a stagnant program, or
Yes.
potentially. I don't mean
Yeah, I
to
would
assume,
say
but
so.
yeah.
Over here, you'd be what caught my eye. They make sure we go to a convention called NACTA. NACTA, if no one's familiar with it, it is the biggest conference for any college sports administration.
Wow.
It varies between Orlando and Las Vegas.
Is it usually a certain time of year? What
It's
roughly?
usually around July.
July, and that's
Yeah,
probably
pretty
when
July.
college athletics is least active. Probably you only
Yes,
got
yeah,
college
June, July
baseball
are
or
I would say, I think
no,
baseball.
baseball's done. Baseball's like done in
Baseball's done.
June, huh?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Unless it's the first week of June, but usually all your sports are completed, and you're about to hop in the next calendar year.
Hmm.
Uh, NACT is a very great
NACTA.
opportunity. So, so that's what struck me. That'd be a green flag for me here at UAB. Um, Going back about interest, what UAB, why I want to get to UAB.
Yeah.
One question I asked, what immediate projects are you guys currently working on now,
Hmm.
or what are you guys planning to do in the future? And that's when I learned there about the basketball project that I wanted to be a part of.
Absolutely.
If there's nothing going on, why are you there?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's true.
I would
How is that
say,
going to help you grow?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's an important question. And this is a good question. You can use this for any department, but very, if you're interested in the fundraising development around, these are very
Yeah.
good questions. Very easy one. I would say you can obviously start off with this one too. If I were hired at this position, what are you guys' expectations?
Mm.
They might share some unrealistic expectations for you, or some like, that's it. Like,
That's a very good point. Yeah.
yeah,
So in other words, you're putting the ball in their court.
exactly. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's like when two people are haggling over price. No
Mhm.
one wants to be maybe the first to give a number. So it's like,
Yep.
well, how
Yep.
much do you want for it? What are you offering? How much,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So it's like you tell me
Yeah.
what's your
Mhm,
expectations,
mhm,
and that
mhm.
way they are. I really like that. That's a
Yeah.
very good piece
Yeah.
of
Usually I
advice.
start off with that question. I'll say that's the number one question I usually start off with.
Yeah.
Actually got three more. Another one is, what areas of growth do you think your team could work on? Great way to show you how they work as a team, what
Yeah.
they do. Yeah, just
Yeah.
if they're kind of blank on that answer, I would,
And also, I notice all of your questions are open ended.
yes. Yeah.
It's not
It's
like
it's not a
yes or
yes or no
no.
question.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no. And that
Expand,
also helps
elaborate.
with fundraising too. If you ever want to have another discussion on that, of building relationships, let's say
Yeah.
that. But another one, and this is a good team question for the committee that's interviewing you. How does your team celebrate success? whether it's a team accomplishment or an
Wow.
individual accomplishment.
Wow. Man, you just blew my mind with that one because so many times in college, in academia, and I'm assuming but I don't mean to assume, there's kind of this conflict of interest between us and I,
Mhm, mhm.
where my personal success might be at the detriment of someone else's because we're competing
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
merit
yeah.
or points,
Mhm,
or
mhm,
and
mhm.
it's kind of hard to, a
Oh, for
pizza
sure.
party ain't gonna solve
Yeah, yeah, I
sometimes
know for this is one person.
sometimes the
Usually we have,
competition.
yeah, usually we have like an annual fund goal, like our scholarship fund goal that we hit. And if we hit it, I'm going to say a piece of party, we have a top golf day or something.
Absolutely.
Or beers down a brewery near here called Good People Brewing. It's a pretty cool place near
But
campus.
it
So,
seems like the places that gravitate to you are team oriented goals.
yes, I would say so.
At the end
I
of the
mean,
day, if UAB wins the game, it doesn't really matter if I had 2 points. If we won by one, my two
mhm.
points
Help. Yeah.
help win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very
Exactly.
cool.
And then I'll do my last question. I always, and this just kind of gives me a feeling of what the office is, their relationship between each other. I
Uh-huh.
always say, outside the office, what do you guys do for fun?
Outstanding question.
Um,
Man, Adam, that reminds me, my first interview before I took this job was at Georgia Southwestern out of Auburn. And I asked them something similar because it
yeah.
was a small town. And the guy interviewed me like, well, we have a video store and me and my wife
Yeah.
will rent
Yeah.
videos at the video store. And I was like,
Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah. And I guess to go back to Purdue, even though it's a small town, I noticed everyone was super close with each other. So they
oh,
always found like, oh, and Thursdays we all go to Applebee's, or
family
even though it's not
atmosphere.
much, they all go enjoy
Yeah.
and spend time with each other. So I
Yeah.
did like that um, camaraderie, and yeah, it was a
And that's
good
and that's obviously
positive environment.
important to you, right?
Yes,
Where you want to go next has to have
mm,
certain qualities that will put you in a position to succeed.
for sure, for sure.
And that's
And
how you find out in in
mhm,
in those interview conversations.
exactly, exactly. So I've been blessed to be in with three great departments, great people, great relationships. I've heard other people who hadn't had so much great relationships, and it kind
But
of makes their time.
but that's how you learn though, right?
Yeah,
That's how you
exactly,
learn. That's
exactly,
maybe that's when you learn what you're looking for. And well, next
absolutely.
next time I won't, you know, you either
Yeah,
win or you learn.
absolutely.
I
Hey, we
have a
learn a lot too.
That's
So
it. I have a couple more questions, but again, what I love about this podcast format is feel free to interject any points and any
for sure.
advice because these conversations, in my humble opinion, is more valuable sometimes than an entire class of a textbook of
Mm-hmm.
strategy. Just personal insight from
Yeah,
people who've lived it and who've
yeah,
been there
exactly. Yeah.
and done that, right? Do you obviously situational aside, sometimes things happen, but is there a standard time window that is approved where you go to a new job
Mm.
and before you start looking for a new job, you kind of want to have at least 2 years, 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what that number is,
Yeah,
but is there kind of an unwritten rule of you go to a new place and you own it for whatever before you start
yep.
kind of looking around? What's kind of the unwritten advice
Mm.
before you kind of climb the next rung
For
on your
sure.
ladder? And
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
situations aside, sometimes things happen, but
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
standard average
Mm.
time in one location.
It's,
What's your advice on that?
I would say whatever place you're at, I wouldn't spend less than 18 months to 2 years. Um, People do look at that. I remember being part of an interview committee, and person had 5 jobs and within 2 years.
Mm. Red flag.
Red flag. Like, why do you keep on bouncing it around? Well, what's
Yeah.
going on? People do look at that. But as I mentioned, there might be certain situations, like as I mentioned, mother passed away, wanted to get, down to UAB. Luckily, I was at Purdue for 18 months,
Hmm.
so well, but UAB understood the reasoning why I wanted to get down here.
It
But
wasn't them, it was something you want, it
yeah,
wasn't that they
exactly.
were doing anything bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you were less than that, I would just make sure to share why you're there for such a long. Just
Mhm.
you want to be near family. Family matters. But yeah, ideally no less than 18 months.
Good
That's 2
good
years.
good sound
That is the
advice.
good rule. That could probably be for any business, but especially in college
Yeah,
athletics,
yeah.
would say that.
What, just personally, when do you, in your vision of your, like, plan, when do you, like, I want to be an athletic director
Mhm,
by, or do you not
mhm.
set those goals because all of a sudden it puts pressure to,
Yeah,
like, in other
yeah.
words, I know eventually you're going to be an athletic director, but do you
Mhm,
have an internal clock in terms of
mhm,
achieving those goals, or are you just patient and know that it'll happen when the
mhm.
timing is right? How do you
That's a good
mentally kind of
question.
go about that goal?
I would say in the beginning, I did have a plan of which position, how many years I'm going to stay at this particular area. Um, I'll say right now I'm in a good position here at UAB, so I don't see myself pressure myself to go
Hmm.
and look at another position. But there's always going to be people reaching out about opportunities, and it's always great to have this discussion and
Hmm.
hear them out and feel like if it's a great fit that you want to go through. But I wouldn't necessarily have a plan, but I would love to be an AD by 45. I would say that's the
45.
long term goal. I know I'm 32 right now, so I
You got
got
plenty of
some
time.
times.
You got
Yeah,
plenty of time.
we got plenty of time, but and that's fine because I want to hopefully gain as much knowledge as I can between those
That's it.
years. So,
That's it.
like I said, I'm happy where I'm at here at UAB. Like I said, great people I work with here, and also it helps that Birmingham's very underrated town here. Not many people
Yeah.
know much about it. It has a very interesting history about it, but it's nothing like what it was and before what it is
You
now.
got you got you got Hoover, man. You always
Yeah.
go to Hoover.
Oh man, that's huge. I didn't realize how big Hoover was. I thought it was a little
It's
town.
big, man.
Yeah.
It's big. What
Yeah.
one more question from me, and then I want to turn it over to you for anything I might have missed or advice, and then giving them their assignment that you're gonna give them their
Yeah.
homework.
Yeah.
If Adam Savoie today could go back, and it could be something we've already talked about,
Hmm.
but the Adam Savoie just graduating from UL in sport management, what's a piece of advice, or and it's not even necessarily advice, but just kind of look out for, or just some life advice. It may not even be about school, but just life
Hmm.
advice. It could be financial advice. It could be live just it could be anything. It doesn't have to be school or work related. But what's something that you know now that you wish you could have maybe had that in your back
Hmm.
pocket for when you started this journey?
That's a great question. I'm going to go back what you said about because I still took this advice when I was at that age when I
Uh-huh.
graduated. Lafayette's always going to be there. Like I said, I always loved
Ah,
Lafayette. Um, and I've spoken to other people who've had experience outside of Lafayette and who came back, and they've always said the same thing, like go experience the world, go,
wow.
just take a chance. Lafayette's always going to be here. So
You can always come back home. And in
yeah.
fact, I'm so glad you brought that up because it's something
Mhm.
we talked about before we started
Exactly.
recording. In
Hmm.
fact, it was the whole point, or kind of the
Hmm. Hmm.
crescendo is so many times students, and I was included, I was
Hmm.
afraid to leave
Yep.
out of fear. But
Hmm.
that also, now that I realize, that lessens my opportunity for growth and and
Yeah,
and climbing that ladder. You can
sure.
always come back home to visit.
Exactly.
You could always come back home to work,
Hmm.
but the
Hmm.
only way you're going to build your skill set, build your relationships,
Exactly.
build your network
Yeah,
is to go cook in other kitchens. There's a reason the best chefs in the world didn't just
exactly.
work in one kitchen. They're classically trained in
Yeah,
all these different kitchens
yeah,
because that's how you're learning different techniques and different recipes
absolutely.
and different styles. And you may
Absolutely.
work at a place where they don't put sugar in their tea.
Nope. Indiana's probably no seasoning on their food over there.
But at the end of the day, especially in athletics, I think, Adam, I'm so glad you brought this up.
Yep,
Even if you're in Lafayette, you're going to be working with coaches from all over the
sure.
country, maybe all over
Yeah.
the world, athletes from all over the
Mhm.
country, maybe all over the world,
Mhm.
students from all over the country, maybe all over the world.
Exactly.
what
Yeah.
better way to relate to them than to say, "Oh, I've been
Mhm.
there, or I worked there,
Yeah.
or I visited." That's
Yeah.
to me, that's a mark of a good athletic director, someone
Absolutely.
who has relatability.
Mhm, mhm, and
Man, I'm so glad you brought
yeah.
that up.
Yeah, yeah, and not to add on to it, but like you mentioned, I'm so blessed to experience outside because I'll say it also gave me appreciation of Lafayette in general, of how much of a special place that place really is. You always hear people outside, it's, happiest place on earth, and we take advantage for it, but to
Yeah.
experience outside of it, like, man, it's
There's an old song that,
yeah,
we boomers used to listen to in the '80s called "Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone," right?
exactly,
And it's
exactly.
not that it's gone, again, it's always
Yeah,
here, just like you said, you could always
yeah,
come back home and
yeah,
visit, you know it's there, but to be able to
exactly.
have these new experiences,
Mhm.
meet these new people. um All right, now we're coming, man, an hour and 12 minutes goes by
Oh
fast
man, it
when the
went by fast,
conversation
huh?
is good. So what
Yeah.
I'm going to do, Adam, we have a tradition here in our pod class that my guests give a homework assignment for professional development to our
Mm.
students in the class. So I'll let you explain what your assignment
Yeah.
is for the students.
Awesome. So I have one question. I kind of mentioned earlier. So I would like for the class to look for three. Actually, I forgot to mention this to people. If someone's interested in college administration route, I do highly advise them to download this website and make an account. Basically, it's LinkedIn for college
Oh,
administration. It's
wow.
called CollegeGate Sports Connect.
Wow.
If someone's interested in doing the
Connect.
college sports
Wow.
administration career,
So that's almost a must do if
I
that's
would say
your,
that
yeah,
mandatory. I would.
absolutely.
It is a great way to see what positioning are currently open. So my assignment is make sure you download that,
Hmm.
make an account, look for three ideal jobs within college athletics that you would like to apply for. It could be either in state or out. And within each department, research three fun facts from each
Nice.
school. It can either be the city itself, the community, their recent success, their history, or why their mascot is what it is.
Absolutely.
As I
But
mentioned, Dayton from earlier.
this is so perfect. It comes full circle. When my I have to visualize, analogize everything. And the fact that I'm not a sport management person to me gives me a unique position where I'm learning as you're
Yeah,
teaching me new
yeah,
stuff and I'm excited about it. But
yeah,
to me, your assignment is like at practice, like let's say
mhm,
before a
mhm,
game where you're running routes and you're
for
practicing
sure.
these things,
Mhm.
you have to practice
Exactly,
these
exactly.
skills that once
Absolutely.
you're in the game,
Mhm, mhm,
because
mhm,
you've done it and you practice it,
mhm,
you'll be more inclined to follow through and do it the right
for
way
sure.
when it's game time. So
Exactly,
I really kind of like that.
exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
So
and yeah, College Gate Sports Connect. That's the future for college administration.
outstanding. Where can, just in case anybody wanted to send you a personal email thanking you or introducing themselves,
Mhm.
where could they send that email,
Yeah,
Adam?
so I'll say my email currently is ajsavoie@uab.edu. So AJSAV is victory, OIE at uab.edu. If anyone wants to follow me on Twitter X, my Twitter or DM me through there. My
Awesome.
Twitter name is at go capital G and then Savoie capital S 80. No space in between.
Hmm. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time, man. Time flies when
Sir.
you talk at sports and
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I
and
love what I
learning
do.
what's under the
Yeah.
hood, man.
Hmm,
That's
hmm.
so fascinating. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time. And man, if
Yeah.
you ever back in Lafayette, let me know and I'll take you to Dino's
Oh, absolutely. I
and we
love
could have some
Dino's.
sweet tea.
Sounds like a plan to me, Ryan.
All right, man.
But
Take care
I
and go
appreciate you having me
Cajuns.
on. Oh,
Yes,
exactly.
sir.
Always go Cajuns.
Be well, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Be